Can everyone hear me all right? Yes? Okay. So good evening. My name is Jen Selpa, and this year I'm the senior head chair of this year's Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week. And as you're probably familiar with the many classroom presentations we've given throughout the week, Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week began 42 years ago here at Villanova University and has since spread to over 500 campuses and other organizations. And so one of the pillars of this week is education, and this year we are honored to have Michelle Taylor and Angela Sutton from Witnesses to Hunger to come and speak to you guys tonight to provide that educational speech. So we thank you for being here tonight. Started in Philadelphia as a part of Drexel University's Center for Hunger-Free Communities in 2008, Witnesses to Hunger is a research and advocacy project partnering with the real experts on hunger, mothers and caregivers of young children who have experienced hunger and poverty. Through their photographs and stories, witnesses advocate for their own families and others seek to create lasting changes on local, state, and national levels. Michelle Taylor, Master's of Social Work, is the Witness to Hunger Program Manager. Michelle is a social worker and community organizer originally from New York City. A graduate of the University of Pennsylvania, class of 2002, she is delighted to return to Philadelphia area to continue her work towards eradicating hunger, homelessness, and poverty. Michelle obtained her MSW in Organizational Leadership and Management from the Silberman School of Social Work and has almost a decade of program management experience. As a community organizer, she has organized global campaigns of resistance against police brutality, street harassment, and domestic violence, for which she has received international acclaim and national honors. Michelle is also an award-winning writer whose work has appeared in the Washington Post, Ebony, Time, and other publications. As a highly sought-after public speaker, Michelle has traveled the country and world speaking to audiences about social justice for the poor, women's rights, and liberation for people of color. Michelle spent the entirety of her professional career working with people in need, and she looks forward to continuing her work with Witnesses to Hunger. She will be joined tonight by Angela and Nike Sutton, member of Witness to Hunger since 2008. Please welcome our speakers.
Thank you all for being here. I'm going to bring Nike up a little bit later and let her take over and put my feet up because I'm tired. All right. So before we get started, I see a lot of computers out and things like that. I know some people like to live tweet these kinds of things. We do have Twitter names. Nike is at Platinum Nike, Nike1. Platinum Nike 1, if that's not an affirming name, okay? So all one word, Platinum, I will try to spell it, Nike, right there, the number 1, all right? I am at Feminista Jones. Feminist with an A, add the Jones, okay? I see some recognition, head nods. Yes, that's who you get to hear tonight. All right. So if you are gonna quote us, make sure you do it accurately. Misquoting black women could be very unsafe. So make sure that if you do quote us, that you do that, okay? I'm just saying. All right. So it's really interesting because I am the outgoing program manager of Witnesses to Hunger. I've been there for about a year and a half, and I came on board to help them design a program out of a project. So the project was started back in 2008 by Dr. Mariana Chilton at Drexel University in the Center for Hunger-Free Communities. The idea was to capture the experiences of mothers of, or caregivers of small children who face hunger and live in poverty. So what she did was she took cameras, she gave them to 40 women, and she asked them to photograph their lives in poverty. From there, they developed photo exhibits, and those exhibits they began to take in different spaces like City Hall, Washington, D.C., things like that, to show this is what life is like in poverty. They used what's called photo voice. It is a method of being able to share photography and transformative storytelling. And so the members of Witnesses to Hunger over the years have become really talented and skilled storytellers who are sharing the truth about their lives. The work began to grow, right? So it started in Philadelphia, but then it moved to Boston, Massachusetts, Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Scranton, Martha's Vineyard, believe it or not, Camden, Sacramento, different cities around the country. Why? Because poverty and hunger is everywhere. Currently, there are 42 million people in this country that are food insecure. Okay? Anybody know what food insecurity is? gotta know hunger and homelessness. Right? you gotta know. It's really this idea that you don't have enough food to have 3 healthy meals a day, right? So 42 million Americans right now are food insecure, and many of them are children. So that's why there's a focus with the School of Public Health on what happens when children are going hungry, how that affects their development, their health, educational track, things like that. So we have other programs at the center that also do research and work with that. The Children's Health Watch we work with. We have a program called the Building Wealth and Health Network, which is taking mothers who are on TANF and teaching them how to save money, and they have the funding to match their savings. So the hope is that when they're done with the whole program, they can walk away with their savings and the education they received to try to elevate out of poverty. Okay? So Witnesses to Hunger is the premier program that comes out of the center. Started off as a project. The project was done, the research was done, the evaluation was done, and what came out of the evaluation was the members said they want to continue the work. And so they needed someone to design a program that could help them continue to do the work, and here I am. And I've spent the last 1.5 years doing that for them, and as I leave, I am leaving them with a blueprint for how to take this program and expand it across the country and the world. Okay? We believe in the idea of art as activism, right? What came out of the development of this exhibit, and you'll see the photos here. Sometimes we do tabletop exhibits, sometimes they're on walls. Sometimes we've got larger easels. We have huge banners that will hang. Sometimes we have videos. You can put in your headphones. You can watch people's stories. If you go to YouTube and you Google Witnesses to Hunger, you'll see a few of those videos as well. We believe that, as they say, a picture is 1,000 words, right? It speaks 1,000 words. And so they have this powerful impact of the photos themselves. But it's not enough to just put them in a gallery and let them sit there. Right? Even with the quotation, we have our quote cards, quotations from the members, it's not enough to just have them there. We like to have the members engage the community that comes to see these photos. So people will come. This was at the DNC in 2016, right? Philadelphia hosted the DNC. Philadelphia has the highest poverty rate of any large city in this country, right? They had one poverty panel that was attended by maybe 50 people at most. Right? Nobody cared. So we hosted this at the African American Museum. And so when people would come in, we had members of Witnesses there every single day so that they could get a tour of the exhibit. They could actually talk to the witnesses, not just coming in, dropping, looking at a picture. They got to talk, and that's part of the advocacy and the activism is you need to talk to somebody who is an expert. And there is no one who is a better expert than someone who lives in it. So they have taken these images of their lives, right? And so you can see right here, this tag says safety and violence. And so what they do is they categorize the photographs into different things that are outputs of poverty. So we'll talk about violence, we'll talk about housing, we'll talk about health, we'll talk, and that includes physical and mental health. They'll talk about these different areas of their lives that are impacted by poverty. And so we arrange them together and people can come and kind of get a look at like what's what, So we believe that these pictures are art, these photographs are through their lens, and these are photographers, and so it's art, but we see it as transformative and activism. The big thing that Witnesses to Hunger wants to do is change policy. We cannot have systemic and systematic change without policy change. So what does that mean? It means that the members have to meet with policymakers, legislators, the people who are sitting at the table making the decisions that are going to affect their lives. What's happening right now in our government? Anybody?
It's a mess.
Yes. Yes, that is answer 0. What else? That's an understood. What else is happening right now? Yeah.
With the Affordable Care Act, they're kind of trying to redo it.
Mhm.
They get rid of the individual
Yes.
mandate.
Yes, we have the Affordable Care Act, but there's another thing that's pressing also right this moment.
Tax.
The tax cuts, right? These nonsensical tax cuts. And what do these tax cuts stand to do? Who do they benefit? Why y'all so shy? Come on, they call and response. What black people do. I know y'all ain't used to it, but we very call and response. What do these tax cuts do? Who do they benefit?
The rich.
They benefit the rich, right? How can you give somebody tax cuts? What do you need to do?
Take them from someone else.
You gotta take it from somebody else. Who are they taking it from? Poor people, right? Well, what do we know about our budget? This much goes to poor people. This much goes to defense spending, right? Where should they be looking? What did they just approve? $692 billion budget for defense. But they believe that the best thing to do is to take them a little bit of money from safety net programs to supply, to make sure that they can have these tax cuts for the rich. And that also includes, like you said, a tax on the affordable health care, right? That doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? Welcome to Donald Trump era. Let me tell you, I gotta say, sidebar, I'm a New Yorker, and we knew that fool was just, I don't know, maybe you voted for him, but I'm from New York City. And we were all watching this like, I've known this man for the last 30 years. What is going on? Does anybody realize that he's like the biggest business failure ever? But okay, sidebar, coming back. I'm back. It's all right, don't judge me. We inform the policymakers. So you'll see here, who's that guy?
Mayor Kennedy.
Yes, Mayor Kennedy, right? And then we'll have these meetings, we'll go to these summits where people will be, like these legislators, we know that they're gonna be there, so we go and we're like, hey, hi, hey, almost like lobbyists, almost, just better, right? Here, they're like literally sitting with legislators and policymakers. Like, this is what my life is. This is Anissa, she's from Camden. She's like, this is what my kids need. Can you make this happen? Because we realize that person-to-person interaction is what's most important. How many of you have ever directly spoken to one of your representatives? Right. So maybe like 30% of you are actively engaged American citizens? Okay. If you're over the age of 18 and you're voting, right, and you're electing to put people in office, but then you don't speak to them, ever. You don't tell them what you want. Then how are you engaged in the idea that government is of the people, for the people? If you, the people, don't tell them what you want. And so then we end up in these situations where people are making these policy decisions where they have no idea what people in poverty need, or young people need, or whatever, because we don't even talk to them. Y'all on Twitter, you can tweet your people. Let me tell you, I know a number of elected officials, they read their tweets. They listen to what their constituents say. So most of them. I don't know about too many, it's another thing. So at the top, we had a youth forum. And the goal of the youth forum was to let young people speak about this. And Angela and I were just talking on the way over. It's like, people look at adults and they're like, well, if you're poor, it's your fault because you won't work or whatever the situation is. But when they look at kids, their heart starts to tug a little bit unless you're Paul Ryan. So we figured that getting children involved in telling their stories, because they have a story to tell too, right? We tend to not want to listen to children. We tend to gloss over them. But they also are experts in their own lives, right? These are kids that go to school. They do rely on school breakfast and lunch to be able to eat. They need to be able to tell their story. Their parents can say it, but when they say, look, I didn't get to eat today because I missed school because those are the only meals I get, that's a really important story to tell, right? So we decided that we wanted to start giving the youth some voices. And so when we do our youth forums, we invite people that are running for positions, elected officials to come and listen to them as well. So we just try to find different ways that we can engage policymakers so that they can hear that real expert testimony. All right, so members of Witnesses to Hunger work as community advocates in their cities. They sit on council, speak at rallies and marches, and host community forums related to issues of hunger and poverty. I'm gonna show you a video of Angela Nike Sutton, we call her Nike. She spoke at the Philadelphia Women's March. And just as a little anecdotal thing, the Philadelphia Women's March was the biggest nonsensical piece of shit that ever was planned. They did not engage any black women in the development of that march, in the planning of that march. It was 4 white women and a black man. And they decided that they were going to represent the entire city of Philadelphia, which has a 26% poverty rate. Damn near a third of the city is black. There were no Muslims involved in any of the planning. There was no diversity whatsoever. A woman that I know, I won't name her, she got tapped to try to give some advice after 8 weeks of them saying that they tried to reach out to leadership. I called all my leaders, their friends, they're like, nobody ever called us. I got on the phone and I cursed them out. I dragged them for filth. Because I did not understand how they didn't even have a trans woman on the docket. Half the list they had was men. at a women's march. Nobody lived in poverty. Nobody did anything. They wanted me to speak. I said, well, in order for me to speak, you need to let a witness speak. And so I got Nike to speak. And I just did my talk was really just an elaborate introduction for her. So we're gonna watch her video real quick. I think if I can click this, is it gonna work? How's it gonna work? You have it?
If you hit escape, it's already open.
If you hit escape, it's already open. And then just go
Explorer.
Explorer. You guys used to use Explorer.
It just opened now.
It's Edge now.
Their poverty does not discriminate.
Hold on, we're gonna start from the beginning. Sorry.
Like you Sutton, I am here to tell you that poverty does not discriminate. I am a black woman, a mother of 2 beautiful black boys, and I live in Northeast Philadelphia. I had lived in poverty in Philadelphia my whole life. Philadelphia has the highest poverty rate of any large American city. The face of Philadelphia poverty is most likely a black mother like me. Being a woman, for me, has always meant being strong, never showing weakness. I have always had to be superwoman, and a woman, all the women around me had to do the same. As a single mother of 2 boys, I had to play both roles every day. I do not have the choice to take care of one or the other. I must do it to both. I, too, am a woman. I am the woman you don't see when you walk down the street sipping your Starbucks coffee. I am the woman you don't see in line waiting for food at your local pantry. I am the woman that you make assumptions about, not knowing really what my life is really like. I am the woman that remains invisible in spaces and events like these. I am a survivor. I am also the woman who fights every day. I am also the woman who understands inequality. I am also the woman who advocates for the rights of women and children living in poverty. I am here. You must see me. You must acknowledge me. When I was 14 years old, I was shot in my stomach. I was unable to move and walk for several years. During that time, I was sexually assaulted by my father. I had been through so much in my life, but I realized later on that everything I went through had a purpose. All of my pain has been for the purpose of helping other women like me to be free. I learned the power of forgiveness, and I turned my pain into advocacy. As a member of Witnesses to Hunger, I am able to give a voice to the women who are voiceless. I can speak about things they go through and get people to listen to our stories. I make sure you see me, you see us. The new administration scares me, but I know I have to continue to fight. Not just for me, but for others that come after me. I stand here before you today, not just for me, but for everyone that's here today. For our children, for our future. We must unite and work together to resist. We can't accept what we are given. We must continue to fight. That means all of us. Let's hold each other accountable for our actions and unite to fight the good fight. As Sonia Sanchez said, in order to be a true revolutionary, you must understand love. And this is what I would like for y'all to do for me. I would like y'all to repeat these 3 lines. I do what I do out of love.
I do what I do out of love.
I am here because of love.
I am here because of love.
We will win because of love.
We will win because of love.
Thank you.
All right. So, allow me, without further ado, to open this PowerPoint back up.
You cannot
What?
afford to see this video.
You cannot.
Get up to it.
Oh, but really though, like how what I do? I gotta do. I'm not. Listen, what over? You said?
more.
One more.
There you go.
There we go. Look, I'm old. All right. Without further ado, I'm going to. You sit for 1 second. She's still. Angela Nike Sutton is a veteran member of Witnesses to Hunger, who lives with her 2 children just northeast of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. A veteran member, Angela is a highly sought-after public speaker and advocate who speaks truth to power by sharing the challenges she has faced in life. She has experienced many kinds of violence, and she was also homeless as a teenager. Angela has become a leader for change with Witnesses to Hunger, notably featured, as you just saw, at the Philadelphia Women's March in 2017. She's also been featured in various publications sharing her personal story. In 2017, Angela became an intern with the Center for Hunger-Free Communities, providing administrative and organizational support to Witnesses to Hunger. I introduce to you Angela Nike Sutton.
You got it for me?
I got you.
Okay, thanks.
Start with
Okay. First, that was my first time seeing the video. Oh, MG. I didn't know I met, yeah. Because I was reading from something. Usually I don't read, I usually don't write down stuff, so it looks like I was really reading. I usually just speak from my heart. A lot of times, when I do these speaking engagements, I am so nervous, so bear with me. What I would like to talk about is what hunger really looks like. Unfortunately, we have this stigma on what hunger looks like. We got big bellies, which I do, but I don't have a flower on my face. I don't sit here and beg for food. We're not people that don't work. We work very hard. I think I work harder than some of our politicians. I can budget, I make things happen. And like she said, we do a lot of advocacy work, working with politicians and legislators to show them what works and what does not work. Unfortunately, they have us looked at as numbers, which is furthest from the truth. We have to give them real life with numbers to show them that we're more than just numbers. These are actual families that they're messing with every single day. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about these 2 pictures that you see. That's my youngest son when I first started. This is my oldest boy over here with my youngest son. And I took these pictures because they meant a lot to me. I have to travel 3 hours, well, my children did. They have to get up 5:30 in the morning and come home at 5:30 at night for a school day, Monday through Friday. It was taking a toll on them, and they've been doing it since kindergarten. My oldest one is 16 now. Whew. So I took this picture because they are exhausted, and it shouldn't have to be, they have to get on 3 buses to get to a school just to get good education, because there's no education in our neighborhood. We shouldn't have to go and pass 10 schools just to get to one school that give you half mediocre education to make it. I have always taught my boys that this is a baseball game. You already have 2 strikes. You can't afford a 3rd strike. Y'all are men and y'all are black. You're not supposed to succeed in society, period. So my job is to inform you, educate you, and show you how to get out of poverty. I will break the cycle with my children. My youngest one is 10 years old. He wants to be a, let me get it correct, multicultural oncologist. Am I saying this right, nurses? Help me. I'm saying it right? Okay. He has been saying he's going to cure cancer since the age of 2. He said it's in the food that we eat, and I'm very proud of him because he has not changed. He just got the right terminology now. He's taken up Vietnamese, Italian, Hebrew, Arabic, French, and some other languages on something called Duolingo. Maybe y'all know. It's an app on your phone. He's doing it all on his own. He goes to the library. He's very focused, tunnel vision. My oldest son, he wants to be interpreter for United Nations. He says because there's lack of communication. So if he learns all the languages he needs to learn and go there, he can communicate, because obviously America is failing somehow, some way. And why I took these pictures is to show America these children didn't ask to be here. So it's my job to make sure I give them everything that they need. My job is to break what you think poverty looks like. I'm not one to sit here and say that I chose my life. I dealt my cards to my children better than I was given. The reason being is because you heard, I've been through a lot. I'm an open book. So that's why I took these 2 pictures. Okay, these 3 pictures mean a lot to me. This one is at the East Cafe. I'm talking on a panel of powerful black women about welfare gap, wages, racial barriers, and things of that nature. This one is when I was at the Women's March, and this one is Tuesdays with Toomey, like he was gonna come out. But it was a speaking platform where I can be a voice for people that are afraid to speak out. Even though I used to be afraid to speak out, I know the power of speaking out and standing up for yourself. So that's why I chose these 3 pictures to show you. That's okay.
All right,
Okay.
so we have some policy recommendations, and one of the things that the members of Witnesses do is they sit on advisory councils, right? So if you are getting involved in any kind of work, any kind of place, don't you want the smartest people, the most knowledgeable, experienced people on board? Yes. So why are there food pantry programs that don't have recipients of food pantry benefits on their councils? That doesn't make a lot of sense, right? So what happened with this recent year is Phil Abundance created an advisory council because they want to move more into advocacy. And they invited members of Witnesses to Hunger to sit on that. Why? Because they needed a witness to tell them people don't need 12 bags of corn in a box. Thank you. You ever had any experience like that, Nike?
Yes.
Okay, can you tell?
What tends to happen is, oh goodness, the powdered milk and the cans of corn. Okay, what tends to happen is when you go to these food pantries, is first of all, it's shameful, it's degrading. And a lot of times, it takes a lot of courage to even go into these places. So when you come out of them, you come out with tons of the same items over and over again, stuff that you don't even eat. Some people got food restrictions, salt restrictions, all kinds of things. And what tends to happen is when they give you these boxes, there's no love put into it at all. It's just like, I'm gonna give you something, be grateful that you got something. Versus putting some love behind it and a thought process where you can actually make a total meal in each box. What tends to happen is we notice that people that actually prepare the boxes, a lot of them don't even have a clue on what hunger is. So what tends to happen is when you get these boxes, it's not that the people want to feel ungrateful, but what are they going to do with 10 cans of corn? You ain't even slap no rice with it. Like, I mean, we ain't asking for butter. We just said, give us some rice to go with the corn or something, you know, something that go. That's like giving me peanut butter with no jelly. Who wants a choke sandwich? Nobody. So our job is really, because you gotta like, don't nobody want that, and then I gotta use powdered milk. Like, are you killing me here? Like, I wouldn't even give that to my enemy. Like, so. So with that being said, we try to, as witnesses, we try to make sure that we are a leading part of every part of advisory boards that has to do with change. We want to be in a policy-making decision process. So when they actually are making policies, we try to be there to testify to Congress, to let them know exactly what works and what does not work. We try to show them that they have no clue on what it is. So we even gave them something called the Food Stamp Challenge, to live, I think it was $1.40 off of a meal a day. Some of them took it. Oh, they were complaining. It was funny to see you in my shoes. So now you understand, no, you can't get your Starbucks today. No, babe. Guess what? You're going to be eating hot dogs and oodles and noodles with us. Making chi-chis, if anybody knows what that is. That's a college food that, you know, University of Penn, we ate. So yes, when you put the little cheese curls, oodles and noodles, Slim Jims, hot dogs, and eat it. Yeah.
That's prison
Woo.
food.
Oh, well, they do it in there too now.
That's how I recognize it. I'm a hood from the Bronx. So.
Oh, yeah. No, that's what we do to survive when you live
That's
on
real.
campus.
That's real.
Woo. So, Yes, so that's what
Yeah.
we try to do with policies.
So we do, at the Center for Hunger Free Community, there is a policy director. She does work directly with other organizations and kind of having the strength in numbers. They organize advocacy days. We just had a day called These Cuts Hurt, Day of Action. That was October 30th. You can look up the hashtag These Cuts Hurt. You can see a lot of the tweets and people were sharing their own stories. So it wasn't just people that look like Angela. It's other people coming forward and saying, you may not have thought this about me, but if it wasn't for WIC, I wouldn't be here. Or if it wasn't for SNAP, I wouldn't be here. Or my parents relied on Medicaid to get us through, that kind of thing. And so what that does is it amplifies people's voices and helps them connect. And like the witnesses are doing that advocacy, but it's like everybody could be an advocate in some way. Like I know for me, I was born into poverty. If it wasn't for Section 8 and food stamps and WIC and things like that, I might not be here because my mother couldn't afford it, my parents were struggling, you know, so that's the only way that we were able to do it. And then we did end up homeless, right? So after my parents got divorced, my mom and I ended up homeless. And my mother had a lot of pride and didn't want to tell anybody, you know, so we struggled through that. But these are the things that, you know, I went through that informed my own worldview. And then I ended up at the University of Pennsylvania, you know, so anything could happen. And it's like I share that as my own testimony, my own witness that maybe if we just invest in these things, look at what the output could be if we didn't just write people off and dismiss them because they're struggling, right? So here's some of our policy recommendations, and I think that this is really the most important part after hearing the witness's story is kind of, this is what we need to do, and this is what we keep working on. So we need to expand access to healthcare, food, housing, and childcare for low-income families. Nike, have you ever had any issues with finding childcare and any struggles with that?
Yes, childcare is one of the most hardest things to find and the most expensive. It's ridiculous how much it costs for you to put your children in childcare. And CCIS, I think it was, the program that helped me. And if it wasn't for CCIS, I wouldn't have been able to go to school and try to get myself out of poverty. So these are the type of policies that we need to make sure it stay intact because they help get people out of poverty.
And I think one of the other things that we don't often talk about when it comes to hunger, access to food, access to jobs and things like that is transportation. So if any of you are studying urban studies or planning and things like that, you have to put transportation, access to affordable public transportation at the forefront of your conversations. Because you can get anybody a job, but if they can't get there, what's the point, right? Those little bike stations that they put up, they don't come to the hood where the low-income people are. They need to have more of them there. So if any of you are interested in like that kind of policy where kind of think about those things, we tend to forget about transportation. We want to prevent the welfare cliff effect and allow families to truly transition to self-sufficiency. Has anybody heard of the cliff effect? I know you have. Have you heard of it?
Stop cheating.
No? So the cliff effect, for those who don't know, is if you are a recipient of food stamps, right? Say you're a mother of 3 and say you get just $350 a month. I'm just making up a number. If you get a job that your income goes over the limit that you're allowed, they cut your food stamps. Like, damn near down to nothing. And then, so it's like, you just got this job. You're just like trying to maybe catch up on bills, try to, you know, find a place to live, maybe catch up on your mortgage, whatever it is, your rent, whatever it is, because you're facing eviction. You're trying to do all these things in the first few months that you have this job, but then you also have to take on the food costs. You know, any supplements that you were getting, any help that you were getting with subsidies that were income-based, they now get cut off. And what that ends up doing is it ends up causing people to stay trapped, and then they fall out of these other things. They go hungry, they go homeless, even with a job. So we're trying to advocate against the cliff effect. We want to promote living wages and family-oriented labor policies. And one of those things is like, we don't really think about, like we talk about childcare again, we need 24-hour childcare centers. Like that's the bottom line. Why? Because we know that when they talk about all the jobs that America's created, we know that they are shift jobs, they are wage-based jobs, and that they are overnight sometimes, evening shift and things like that. If daycare centers are only open during the day, what does that do for the families that can only work at night, right? So we have to think about that. And they need living wages, right? The e-cafe, which we also run, is a pay what you can. They pay a minimum of $15 an hour, and they don't accept tips because they want to give a living wage to the workers. So maybe you can push for policy and you can advocate for more stores and companies and things like that to do that, more restaurants to do stuff like that. We want to include support for people who have experienced trauma in programs that encourage participation in the workforce. And what we mean about that is, like, as Nike kind of shared, you know, a lot of people that are living in poverty have experienced tremendous amounts of trauma, usually starting from childhood and beyond. And because of the lack of access to health care and support, they're not getting treatment and support for those trauma-related issues that they have. So what does that end up happening? It ends up affecting the rest of your life. When you get a job, you try to go to school, these different things, trauma will come up. You'll have these triggers that you haven't really addressed. And a lot of times when the members go to speak about their own stories, that stuff comes up for them. So we have to make sure that, you know, people who have lived in poverty and faced hunger have that kind of trauma support. We want to change the culture of the human services sector to increase respect towards those seeking help. Do you have anything to think about that? Have you ever had any experience like with any of these services where they like just did not treat you right?
Yes, the county assistance office, I understand that they're overworked and underpaid. Unfortunately though, they act like we're taking a part of their check when you go in there. They can be very rude, degrading, and talk down to you as if they're better than you. And it's really hard to swallow your pride because you need these services, but people are talking to you as if you're just a peasant and you don't deserve anything. So as witnesses, what we're trying to do too is give them some kind of trauma-related training as part of their criteria to have these jobs. Because a lot of times they trigger people's trauma. Like we're doing this whole epidemic on the opioid addiction. It's just funny to me how now, because it's affecting a lot of white people, is a disease. But it's been affecting African American people all their lives. People have robbed and been to jail for taking a Snickers bar to feed their children, or snatching Pampers, or they snatch things to get high, or you know. But now, because it's not affecting just us, now it's a disease. Now all of a sudden, no, you're not going to get jail time. We're going to put you in a methadone clinic. So these are some of the things that we speak up against because we want it just to be equal across the board.
You know, it's funny, I just have a sidebar. A lot of times, and I see this coming from folks who are totally disconnected from life in poverty, especially a lot of young people, they complain, well, if you're poor, how come you are lined up for Jordans or you have an iPhone, right? They want to ask those questions. It's called the Sunday best effect. When you are perpetually degraded because you're seeking help, you know that people judge you based on how you look. So what a lot of people do is they want to put on their Sunday best so that when they navigate the world and society, they're not treated like lepers. They're not treated like the worst of the worst. So maybe you see them in Jordans because their mother or their father just did not want their children to have to deal with the ridicule of going to school and the abuse and the bullying. So they take whatever money they have and they get them those Jordans, just so their kids don't have to deal with one other thing, right? You see the mothers going down to apply for, you know, public assistance, or TANF as it's called, and they may have an iPhone. You don't know who gave them that iPhone. It could have been a service that they were working with that was giving them out. Maybe they got them somewhere. People make assumptions. Well, if you have an iPhone, why are you asking for TANF? Well, I want people to see this so that they see that I'm a woman, that I can take care of myself. Right now, I just need a little bit of help. But don't judge me and don't treat me poorly. So you have to remember that Sunday best effect and what happens, and try not to judge a book by the cover, right? And finally, we need to create a national plan to end hunger that involves the people who know hunger and poverty firsthand in decision making. That is the entire mission of Witnesses to Hunger, to make sure that the experts on poverty and hunger are the ones who are at the table, okay? We're going to do a Q&A, but first I wanted to make sure that you all had our contact information. If you want to follow Witnesses to Hunger on Twitter, it is witnesses_NATL. On Facebook, it's /Witnesses to Hunger National. We have an amazing blog. It's called witnessestohunger.blog. I created it. It's awesome. The website is all right. It's witnessestohunger.org. It redirects to the center. And then for people that want to donate to support the work, you have bit.ly/witnesses / you have to put that capital S for some reason. It's like the only link that's like, you know, case sensitive. It's annoying. Anyway, capital S for support, WTH. And what it is like that money doesn't go into the witnesses' pockets, right? So we're not paying people for their stories. We're not giving pity money. It actually goes to the work that Witnesses does. Because what the program does is we give speaker stipends, or we try to cover their travel or their food or things like that. If we can get other organizations to cover their honorariums, that's the best option. But if it's an organization that we feel like absolutely needs to hear this story, like maybe it's a elementary school in a very, very poor neighborhood, then we won't charge them anything, but we want to make sure still on our end that the members are getting compensated in some way. A lot of times members come to us to speak and they have not eaten all day. But they come and they share their story. And we have to make sure that we are nourishing them, that we're not exploiting people, that they are being compensated, because this is labor, this is work. So that's where that money goes towards. It goes towards expanding our sites. So we have membership recruitment events where we provide refreshments and things like that. So we want to make sure that we get more people involved. When we travel back and forth to DC and all these other places to do this advocacy, we take it wherever we can go. That's where the money goes. And sometimes people think that it's like donations that go to the families and witnesses. It's not like that. It's the work of witnesses. So these women are coming out. It's mostly women. We have a few men coming now. Yay, through expansion. Yeah, but we haven't talked to him in a while, but it's okay. What we do, some of our new members are men, and we think that's really important as well. So that it really goes towards that kind of thing, and really being able to support the work that they do. And next year is the 10th anniversary. They'll be doing a lot of fundraising as well. But we do want to go back, and we want to open it for Q&A for Nike and I, whomever has questions or anything like that.
I want to say this, because I know sometimes people have a question, but they're scared to ask the question. No question is taboo. Please ask. I'm an open book. Anything you want to know, I'm here to help you, help us. Yes?
Being at Villanova, I get the pleasure of speaking with a lot of right-leaning students, and they say that people that use these programs or take part in these programs become dependent on the programs. What's the response to that?
See, that's where the cliff effect comes in. A lot of us don't be dependent. If you on a job and you got 90-day probation period, and I tell you I'm working, and you cut me off everything, and say if they don't want us, because sometimes people hire people just for a little bit of time, just so they could get the job done, but they don't really want to keep you. So then that starts it all over again. Now I got to reapply and do all this other stuff. It's not that we want to be dependent on it. It's the fact that we need a safety net. No holes in the net, and right now it's holes in it. So as witnesses, what we're trying to do is to make sure that you have to be at your job at least past the probationary period before they even cut your benefits off. That makes sense? Okay. Yes?
Wait, I was going to answer.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. What you guys can, what you could say to them? First of all, they can shut the hell up. And I'm just going to be real honest. I think a lot of times y'all let people say things and get away with things that they just really need to be quiet, because they have no idea what they're talking about. You know why they're dependent on programs sometimes? Because the programs barely give anything worth living. It's degrading. It is, there's no dignity in it. How, $1.40 per meal. You all want to really talk about that? Who's dependent on $1.40 a meal? Could you build a dependency on $1.40 per meal? No, right? So that narrative is bunk. Let's be really honest. The mortgage tax credit that you get is way more than TANF and food stamp benefits combined for a person living in poverty. So because you were able to buy a house, you could write it off and get your mortgage credit. Come on, that's welfare. Mimi Abramovitz, everybody is on welfare. Go look that up and read it. She breaks down how every single one of you is on welfare. It's just that we call it something different.
Yes.
Okay? How many of you went to public school? You received welfare growing up. You got a free education subsidized by the government. Hi, you're all on welfare. You're welfare recipients.
Welcome.
You are no different than her. And part of the work is changing that stigma and that narrative. Okay? Okay? Mortgage credits, student loan credits, all those interests that you deduct on your taxes, all that stuff that you get, that's all welfare. All right? So sometimes maybe it's about time to change the language. All right? All right.
Okay.
Anybody else?
He was in the back.
Okay. Questions? Anybody else?
What were some examples of like how the system could work that at times, like, so that people understand what it's supposed to function like, so that it has the outcome of stopping the cycle?
So yeah, that's part of the cliff effect issue. I personally think that they need to increase the amount of money that's given to people, because I think that you'll be able to give it for a shorter period of time. That's just my philosophy. Like, I think the fact that you're giving $1.40 just prolongs how long somebody is going to rely on this, because it's never enough. But I feel like if you gave 3 times that amount, you would end up in a situation where people are eating healthier, which would improve their ability to learn. They'll get better in school, you know, they'll have more of those opportunities. I think for housing costs and things like that, you know, if you increase the subsidies a bit, that's a little bit more that people could save every month to try to elevate and get a savings. You need to stop, okay, so the limits that people can have on their savings, are people aware that, like, if you receive like Social Security benefits, there's only so much money you can have in the bank saved?
$1,000.
And it's like 1,000, for some people it's 2,000. Like, I think for like disability it might be. But if you get above that, they'll cut your benefits. Like, could you imagine? Like, oh, what am I supposed to do with $2,000? I'm not gonna get any more benefits now because I have $2,000 saved? So what do people end up doing? They put it in their mattress, they put it at home, you know, they try to save whatever they can. But that is a guideline that is designed to keep you where you are. As long as you want this help, you cannot save money to get you into a place where you will no longer need this help. That is a problem. We need to increase the limits on which people can save and how much they can have in their bank accounts, right? We need to have, I mentioned earlier, the daycare issue. 24-hour daycare is an issue I think will elevate millions of Americans out of poverty. Affordable 24-hour daycare. You know why? Because some people switch, not even just that they may work 4 to 12. It may be 4 to 12 on Monday, 8 to 4 on Thursday. You don't know what your schedule's going to be, and then from week to week. So imagine if people weren't getting stuck with no babysitter, having to lose wages, right? When we talk about the wage gap, who really takes the responsibility for that most of the time? It's mostly mom or the female caregiver. That's the one that has to take off from work to stay home with the kid when they can't find coverage. That's where that wage gap comes in, right? So how do we change that? And we know that women of color experience poverty disproportionately. So perhaps if we just provide 24-hour daycare, we could see that shift. We will see a shift. It's not even that. We also need to work on the environmental racism, the fact that people are growing up in toxic neighborhoods, toxic homes, drinking toxic water, breathing toxic air that is redirected to areas of color and low-income spaces. So if we get policy, we get programs from that, then what we'll start to see are healthier people. Again, back to the education part, healthier people learn better, okay? We don't have kids repeating the 3rd grade 3 times because they have developmental disabilities because of the lead in their water. Flint, Michigan, Camden, New Jersey, Baltimore, Maryland, okay? Right? The woman, Corinne Gaines, that was killed when police rushed in and she was holding her child. They found she had 22 times the acceptable level of lead in her blood from drinking Baltimore water. What it does, we go study the effect of lead on your cognitive abilities. So those, I'm starting to, you start thinking about systemic things. How do we change these? It's like, people are always thinking I can give you this handout, I can do this, we can do that. I'm like, but you gotta back it up a little bit. Before you even get to how much, we're giving somebody, let's look at the things that are creating these conditions, right? You're born into a house that's full of mold, that's what you're breathing, your mind ain't gonna work right. So how you going to school and learn? You're hungry, so you're on that, you're not thinking. If we're saying education is the key to elevating out of poverty, and the schools are already shitty, then what are we doing? Right? That's what I'm thinking. Hope I answered your question.
What I was thinking is policies. A lot of times, just getting SNAP benefits or TANF, they take and look at your gross. They don't take and look at the net what you bring home. So what happens is Uncle Sam got to get their money, and you didn't even calculate that I'm not bringing home what you say I'm bringing home. I'm only bringing home 20% of that. So you want to say I don't qualify, or you say I'm getting too much, or but you're not even counting the bills that we have. You're not counting, taking all that into account. So us as witnesses, we trying to make sure that we talk to legislators and policymakers to change that. Because a lot of times, if you just go by what we bring in, a lot of people would qualify. A lot of people would be able to get off the cliff effect. Because don't nobody, and I repeat, nobody that ever been on public assistance likes it. Nobody. And that's what a lot of people think, that you just want to stay on it and be on it for the rest of your life. Nobody likes to struggle every day. It's not fun. So that's one of the things I think we really need to look at, the policies, and start holding our legislators accountable. Because we vote them in, but nobody, as the voters, hold them accountable for doing what they say they're going to do.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about the policies in food services programs for like elementary schools? And, like, how that works and the problems there?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that we were working with Phil Abundance on as well, and we also were sitting, the mayor has this like task force for school breakfast, and we had a couple of members, we met with some folks and we're talking about that. There's huge policy issues there. For example, one of the members shared that at her son's school, there's like a 13-minute window that you're allowed to get in to get breakfast. If you're not there between, I think it's like 7:47 and 8 o'clock, if your child gets there at 8:01, they don't get breakfast, right? That small window, you know, if you miss that, you're done. Why can't the window be a half hour? Well, because they say they don't have the staffing, they can't afford to pay for that or whatever, and they only get a certain number of meals. They don't receive enough meals for every child in the school to get breakfast. So that's another policy thing. If we're providing meals and food service and things like that, we need to have one meal per child per meal, breakfast and lunch. And the way that they can help with that is like get a sign up at the beginning of the year, which parents or whatever, that can help with it. But the fact that they only have, like, once they have this and once this runs out, that's it. And if they don't give those out, then they lose money. It's like they've got to check off, and the kids have to take certain things. If a kid only takes like 2 of the 5 items instead of 3, they don't get to count that, right? But what if the kid is allergic to 3 of those things? So that's where I think a lot of that policy work could be done. It's like really communicating between the parents, the children themselves, like health officials, and then the food services in the schools. So there's like a lot of conversation that needs to happen between those various groups to really get at the heart of what the policy should be. And then you have someone like, Paul Ryan saying that people would be more dignified if they didn't have to, if they could bring their own lunch. And it's like, okay, so are you suggesting that the kids that get free lunch have no dignity? It's like, they just want to eat. Like, why are we even making these assumptions about people? We need policymakers to stop trying to speak for children, right? Yeah.
I was going to ask before, besides the large amounts of corn you're talking about, what other types of food are you providing with? Do you get produce, like fruits, vegetables, or is it mainly packaged stuff?
Well, there's some food pantries that I have learned that do have meats and produce. They're very, very few, and they're far away from where they're really needed. I know it's one up by Red Lion Road, a Jewish food pantry. They actually have refrigerators and stuff and freezers, so you can actually get meat and stuff, and then you have to go on a computer, and it's a little bit dignified where you could just sit there and you could choose the options that you want, and then you go like a supermarket and you actually pick up the stuff. But that's not where it's needed. Does that answer you? Okay. Yes.
I believe you said that Philadelphia is the most poverty of any major city in the U.S. What specifically about Philadelphia do you think has made it suffer from poverty to a greater extent than other cities?
Well, oh man, you could get into so much. I think just kind of how it started out industrially. It is a port city. Like there's a lot of access to the water and things like that. And I think as the industry kind of dried up and you see all those industrial buildings and stuff that are abandoned now, it's like all of that production and stuff was taken out, and so that left a opening gap for work, right? And people just couldn't find the work. Unfortunately, for the last, I guess, 8 years or so, the education has been owned by the state. that has like, you know, in terms of funding to the city, so the education has been on a decline. So it's like when your education's lower, what is your access to jobs looking like? They're talking about bringing jobs into Philadelphia and they're trying to recruit other people to come in. And it's like, that's not the answer when you have people here that are willing to work, you know, and it's like, I just don't understand. But I do understand because the majority of the people are people of color and they're struggling, and we have to really accept that the maintenance of poverty in some spaces really is racially coded and racially driven. And so it's like, they'll look at someone like an Angela, they'll see a black mother and they'll think, that's kind of what black mothers are, they're poor, you know? But they'll look at like a white father and be like, wow, we gotta help this guy. He shouldn't be poor. You know, it's like, it's that lack of empathy, it's that racial gap in the empathy. And I think that also over time, it's just mismanagement of money, a lot of corruption, political corruption in the city. The city is notoriously politically corrupt, has been for years. You look at the Rizzo reign, if you go and look at Frank Rizzo, why people want to remove the statues, because he was a horrible, horrible, horrible person. You know, and so these kinds of things have effects, like Mayor Koch in New York, like these things have lingering effects on cities with job production, people's willingness to even be here, you know what I'm saying? It's all these kinds of things that I think factor in, and just like the loss of jobs and not enough influx of them, like not enough job creation to catch up to all the jobs that were lost as manufacturing and the industrial stuff started to shift. We have some neighborhoods that have like 45% poverty rates, right? And they're white neighborhoods.
Exactly.
But nobody talks about that.
At all.
You know?
Yes.
You mentioned how you told your kids that they already had 2 strikes being black men. Do you feel as a black woman you have an extra strike, and if so, what are the particular issues that you face as a woman?
Well, first, yes, totally. I have a lot of things against me. I'm a female. I'm black. I'm a single parent, and a lot of times it makes me feel like the obstacles are endless because of my sex, because of my color. How can I say this without cussing?
Sorry, I've been cussing too much.
Yeah, that's okay. I just think it's a crock of bull. It shouldn't be. If I'm working to earn a living, I should be able to work. I shouldn't be discriminated against because I'm a female. Then I'm a black female. And like I try to tell my children, the only thing better that they have than me is that they're males. But as a black female, we're not supposed to be. We're just supposed to be, can I say that? No, I can't say that. Okay.
I don't care.
I'm trying to say it without bringing like all the way back to slavery and things of that nature. How can I say it? Barefoot and pregnant is what they expect me to be. That's the cleanest way I can say it. Does that make any sense? Okay.
I think it's really funny that that policy makers or that like people in society look at black women with such disdain, you know, poor black women with such disdain, where capitalism won't be sustained without black women producing a labor force that they can exploit, right? So that's how this country has always been. This country's bottom line is based on black women's wombs. So it's really funny that they turn and point the fingers because they know they are looking forward to the children that they have. So they can either put them in jail for imprisoned slave labor, or they can trap them into jobs, low-paying jobs that they can exploit. And then that's how you sustain capitalism, right? So I just think it's really funny that they want to point the blame at them.
Yes.
The core issue through all of it, through any issues of inequity and justice, is just equal human dignity and recognition of that. Part of it is like, no matter what challenges people face, or the more that they do face, there's also more of an opportunity for resilience and strength within that. And so knowing that the strikes are against, can you highlight some of the things that you believe are like strengths that come out of that that people often don't even recognize?
I believe the strength that comes out of that is because, like, when I look at my children, they fight harder, they work harder, they're determined. Failure is not an option. The only way you fail in my house is if you quit. I also explain to them that you either learn or you win, but either way you still win. I'm amazed by them every day that I know that with knowledge comes great, great power. I'm gonna steal it from Spider-Man. It comes great responsibility. I can honestly say that all the stuff that I have implemented into my children, that they have really shown me that a lot of people don't understand how strong we really are. Unfortunately, in white society, you get $1 million, you lose it, you be ready to jump off the bridge. Us, okay, we'll be all right. Let's get these oohs, noos, and hot dogs popping. If that makes any sense, to make it a little lighter. We can handle a lot of things, and we always overcome, always. And with pain always comes purpose and growth, and development and understanding.
I think one of the funny things for me was learning how to do work with no light.
Yes.
Learning, being in elementary school and living in my mother's car at night and having to do my homework, but she couldn't leave the light on because it would run the battery. So like learning how to do work with no light. I know that's like sounds really weird, but it's something that some people take for granted, that you can turn on the switch, like when our lights were out. It taught me how, like, on a long day, an 18-hour day, how to go without eating and not, like, totally pass out, because it just built up that resilience over time. And it taught me, I think the greatest strength that comes out of growing up in poverty and living that is the development of empathy and compassion for other people. I think, unfortunately, there's way too many of us don't have it. And I think it's one of the greatest assets you can have as a human being is having empathy and compassion for other people. And I think that growing up in these situations helps us develop that.
Just to piggyback off of what she said, because my youngest son, I remember he was little, and he was like 2.5 at the time, and Alex Lemonade Stand had came on. And he felt so much compassion, and we were struggling. We had red beans and rice, I think, that night. He was like, I just want to give her my red beans and rice, Mom. How can I help? And then he went to sleep. He woke up. He said, Mom, I'm going to cure cancer. It's in food. I said, what? What are you talking about? But that love that he had out of our struggle and to see somebody else struggle made him stronger to even go after what he really desires. And I mean, he's talking about mitosis and self-defense stuff. I don't know what he's talking about. But he's there, and he's 10. So that just shows me that with everything that we go through, it makes us stronger, it makes us wiser, and it does give us that empathy and sympathy for others. And if more people had empathy and sympathy, or just have that truly genuine love for people, we wouldn't even be in this situation.
And I think one of the things you talk about with like breaking the cycle, it's not just about breaking the cycle of poverty, it's like breaking the cycle of like our socialization about things. Like my son has not experienced poverty. I mean, I always have money, but I make sure that he never, struggles with anything. But the way that I raise him is informed by what I grew up with. And so I like taking my own experience and then breaking that cycle and teaching him. And so, like, even though he has never missed a meal, you look at his little chubby face and know he ain't never missed a meal, he's still the kid that's like, Mommy, he's like texting me, he's like, Mommy, guess what? I'm like, what? He said, I'm gonna donate some toys to Puerto Rico. And I was like, why? He's like, so those kids can have something to cuddle at night. And I'm gonna give him Rainbow Black Monkey. He's had Rainbow Black Monkey since he was 1. My kid's 11. It's his favorite toy. And he wants to send that toy to kids in Puerto Rico so they can have something to cuddle. He didn't have to experience poverty to do that. He was raised by somebody who taught him empathy. So like, even though you haven't, some of you may not have experienced poverty or hunger, you can still teach your children to, if you have children, to have empathy and human dignity. Like you said, respect human dignity. Teach them to be givers, not takers.
Yes.
In your speech that we watched, you said you had, at the end, you had the crowd repeat those 3 lines.
Mm-hmm.
I do what I do out of love. I'm here because of love, and we will win because of love. Can you explain a little bit about why you ended your speech with that and the power behind that?
The reason why I did that is because I was talking to my children, and we all understood that if everybody just had love, you wouldn't be greedy. You would care if somebody's not eating. You would care about policies that's affecting people if you just loved each other. Don't look at the pigment in their skin. Don't look at that they're human beings. We're all immigrants. Nobody, I don't know, but I don't think nobody in here is supposed to be here. And my thing is, if you walking in love and just show each other that you care, just have that compassion, we're strength in numbers. And then you can resist what we're going through. You can stand on the fact that we love each other, and we're not going to stand for what is going on. We're not going to tolerate it anymore. And if we work together and work on just forget that color of our skin, our sex, and just use love as our unity as the thing to unite us, then we'll win in the end.
All right. Thank you very much. We all appreciate you being here and
You got
sharing
something
with
to
us.
say?
Afterwards, if you want to talk real quick,
Okay.
because we gotta go. But thank you so much. We're really happy to be
Thank
here.
you.